Fema Cheif breaks silence, sends horrifying message to all American people about Hurricane Irma. Florida is being hit with devastating winds, heavy rain, and huge waves from Hurricane Irma as the state braces for its most catastrophic storm ever. Nearly 7 million people have been ordered to leave their homes in the largest evacuation in U.S. history. The monster storm is packing sustained winds of 125 miles per hour, and a storm surge up to 15 feet is expected to inundate entire neighborhoods. According to your Newswire, the chief of Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, has warned that Hurricane Irma looks set to destroy the United States. Speaking at a press conference, Brock Long said that Irma is expected to completely devastate Florida and ravage the rest of the country. He also said the hurricane will leave Florida without electricity for the foreseeable future and leave 100,000 residents without any shelter. Hurricane Irma continues to be a threat that is going to devastate the United States and either Florida or some of the southeastern states, he said. Most likely arrival a time of tropical storm force. Window of opportunity to prepare for Irma is quickly closing. Winds will increase to unsafe levels tomorrow in South Florida. SputnikNews.com reports Florida state officials have already called for residents to head to shelters and obey all evacuation orders. More than 100,000 were told to evacuate from Miami-Dade County starting early Thursday. Hurricane Irma, a Category 5 storm, ripped through islands of the eastern Caribbean on Wednesday en route to the U.S. state of Florida, leaving a trail of destruction in its path, especially in Anguilla, the British Virgin Island, Barbuda, and Turks and Caicos Islands. According to reports, Hurricane Irma is likely to create the largest mass evacuation in U.S. history. Miami-Dade County, along with nearby Broward and Palm Beach counties, have a combined population of roughly 6 million people. After the Hurricane Harvey, which hit the U.S. state of Texas as a Category 4 storm last week in what turned out to be one of the costliest natural disasters in U.S. history, Irma was upgraded to a Category 5 storm on Tuesday with winds in excess of 180 miles per hour. Let's take a quick listen here.
To talk to us about everything going on in Florida, from power outages, evacuations, storm surge, some of the deadliest effects of a hurricane this size. Let's talk first about these power outages, because it really does speak volumes that people are already out of power, and this hurricane hasn't even landed on shore yet.
Yep, so, obviously the problem with this storm running south to north through the whole state, the maximum radius winds based on this forecast are going to go through a large, sizable portion of the state. Power is going to be out, and this could be one of the largest power outages the United States has seen in a long time, particularly for those in Florida. We're anticipating millions without power for multiple days, if not longer in some cases. So it's all about setting citizen expectations right now. We're going to do everything that we can, to pre-stage and work with our private sector energy partners to be able to get the power on. But because of the forecast track here, people need to expect and be ready for the power to be off for quite some time.
Okay, so the winds obviously causing those power outages with power being knocked down and also trees coming down as well. We need to talk about the water because water, and I'm talking about this massive storm surge as a result of the outer bands of this hurricane, accounts for nearly 85% of tropical cyclone-related deaths. Storm surge and winds are the two biggest killers along the East Coast here. Talk about the storm surge being the greatest hazard, since water actually kills more people than anything else.
Sure. You said it best. The wind-driven water encroaching shortly in Monroe County. If the water levels are already coming up around Monroe County and portions of southwest Florida, you know, your window to evacuate is running out in Southwest Florida. And the bottom line is you got to get out of those zones and into a facility that can withstand the winds. And hopefully people are doing that. The other expectation that we got to set is that because of the logistical nature of being able to access Southwest Florida or Southern Florida, you know, it's going to take some time before search and rescue crews can get into those in Monroe County and some of those portions of Florida. So we're asking people to get out if you still can.
And there is still time. I mean, the brunt of this is not supposed to hit until tomorrow morning, and there are areas that have been told if you don't evacuate, if the winds exceed 45 miles per hour, emergency crews are not going to come get you. This thing could blow through for 36 hours. Imagine 36 hours being stranded somewhere with no help. I want to talk to you about the destructive potential of historic proportions that we are facing. Without alarming Floridians, at the very same time, we need to talk about reality here. Okay, so Irma, in fact, according to experts have told me, will have Hurricane Charlie's winds potential, plus Hurricane Katrina's surge potential from 2005. Nothing like the state of Florida has ever seen before. Do people truly understand the magnitude of this storm there?
Unfortunately, I don't believe all citizens understand the magnitude of what's about to happen. The eye is coming off the backside of Cuba, the north side of Cuba now, which allows it to give you over warm water. I think as forecasters are predicting, it will gain intensity and continue to push water up onto the coast and then move through the state. This is a different angle of attack. This storm, as I said, is moving from south to north through the state. Charlie came in at a different angle closer to Port Charlotte. And unfortunately, with Irma and the trajectory of coming up the west coast, storm surge is going to be a problem from basically the Monroe Keys all the way up into Tampa Bay and around you know, the Panhandle in Florida.
Right, and let's just talk about the damage factor according to the Saffir-Simpson hurricane wind scale. This is how it works, okay? It goes up by a factor of 5 every time you go up a category. So basically, a Category 4 hurricane produces 25 times more damage than a Category 2. A Category 3 hurricane produces 25 times more damage than a Category 1. Now, if you look at the way that this storm has sort of gone back and forth around the Florida Panhandle as it moves west, just because this hurricane is moving west does not mean that the East Coast is not going to be free of this massive storm surge, because as you look at these models, the hurricane churns counterclockwise, so it's the wind and the storm surge around it where you are at greatest damage. Now, a lot of these people in Miami, in fact, evacuated up to areas like Tampa and Orlando. I lived in Singer Island, Florida during hurricane season. Every single month, practically, I ended up in Orlando. What happens to the thousands and thousands of people that headed to Tampa, where they are now actually bearing down for potentially the worst conditions as a result of Hurricane Irma?
So the worst place to be is in the northeast quadrant of this storm that's moving north. In the northeast quadrant, that's where the maximum radius winds are that define the storm's intensity. That's where a majority of the storm surge will occur. And if I remember my numbers correctly, 80% of all landfalling hurricanes bring with them tornadoes in that right front quadrant. But the safest place to be is outside of that storm surge zone and getting into an inland area, you know, into a facility that can handle the forecasted winds, not where the storm is currently, but what is forecast. You know, what forecasters are projecting for areas like Orlando and Tampa. And, you know, the one advantage that Florida had was the 2001 building code. So, you know, after 2001, new construction was supposed to be built to a Category 3 standard. And that's something to keep in mind as you're moving inland and trying to find a facility. You don't necessarily have to go hundreds of miles when evacuating to seek safe shelter. So, you know, keep that in mind as well.
Yeah, what Brock is referring to is after 1992 when Hurricane Andrew, which had come in at a Category 4 storm, came in, it absolutely devastated parts of Florida, and the building code had to be changed specifically for the rooftops of a lot of these buildings that are used. A lot of them have shingles and tiles that weren't properly nailed down. They blew off. People lost the tops of their homes. So Brock, I mean, it seems as though the buildings are up to code. Let's just hope that people are heeding the warning. So far, it seems like they have.
Not all buildings are up to code.
Not all, no,
new
of course,
construction
not
after
all.
2001, yeah.
So if you were in a building before 2001, be sure to not be inside that building when this thing hits.
Yep. and pay attention to the forecasted inland winds and impacts as well. But here again, get out of the storm surge zone, get into a facility that can handle the forecasted winds.
Right.
That's the goal. Your time to evacuate in Monroe County is coming to an end. The water levels are coming up. So get to high ground as much as possible.
All right, Brock Long from NOAA, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Well,
thank you.
I'm from FEMA, rather.
It is scary. The Department of State is operating a 24-hour task force to coordinate the U.S. government's response to Irma and Jose with the anomalous hurricanes currently ravaging the Americas, floods destroying India, and wildfires destroying the Pacific Northwest. Weather warfare is a topic on the public consciousness right now. Please share this with as many people as possible. Yeah, it is devastating here. Let us know what you guys think in the comments below, and again, thank you so much for watching. Devastate Florida and ravage the rest of the country. He also said the hurricane will leave Florida without electricity for the foreseeable future and leave 100,000 residents without any shelter. Hurricane Irma continues to be a threat that is going to devastate. Nearly 7 million people have been ordered to leave their homes in the largest evacuation in U.S. history. The monster storm is packing sustained winds of 125 miles per hour, and a storm surge up to 15 feet is expected to inundate entire neighborhoods. According to your Newswire, the chief of Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, has warned that Hurricane Irma looks set to destroy the United States. Speaking at a press conference, Brock Long said that Irma is expected to completely. Fema Cheif breaks silence, sends horrifying message to all American people about Hurricane Irma. Florida's being hit with devastating winds, heavy rain, and huge waves from Hurricane Irma as the state braces for its most catastrophic storm ever. The United States and either Florida or some of the southeastern states, he said. Most likely arrival a time of tropical storm force. Window of opportunity to prepare for Irma is quickly closing. Winds will increase.